Okay, this is our daily study of Pirkei Avot, the Mishnah Ethics of the Fathers, in honor of those who have yard site for tonight, the 24th of Av. Castle Agron, Janet Davidson, Alec Mendelson, Ruth Richmond, Rosalie Rosenblum, Sarah Turkin, and Adeline Helsvig, whose Hebrew name is Chaya Adel Bas Yitzchak. Le'ilo Nishmasam in their memory. We are up to chapter 6, Mishnah 4. A link to the text of the Mishnah will be in the first comment below. Kachi darka shel Torah, pas b'melach tochel, u'mayim b'masura tishtev, al aretz tishan, v'chai etzar tichyehu, v'torah ta'amel, v'im ata oseh chen, ashrecha v'tov lach, ashrecha b'olam hazeh, v'tov lach l'olam haba. Al tevakesh gedula la'atzmach, v'al tachmod kavod, yoster melimudach aseh, v'al tisavel l'shulchanam shel malachim, sheshulchanach gadol mishulchanam, v'chisrach gadol mikisram, v'neman hu ba'al malach tach, sheyeshalim lach schar pulasach. Okay, and in English, this is the way of Torah. You shall eat bread and salt. You shall drink water by small measure. You shall sleep on the ground, and live a life of privation while you labor in the Torah. And if you do so, happy shall you be, and it shall be well with you, quoting from Psalms. Happy shall you be refers to this world, and it shall be well with you means in the world to come. Do not seek greatness for yourself, and do not covet honor. Let your practices exceed your learning. And do not yearn for the table of kings, for your table is greater than their table. And your crown is greater than their crown, and your employer is trustworthy to pay you the reward of your labor. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning and analyze. This is why you need commentaries, and why Judaism is all about the tradition, the oral tradition. That you can't understand the written Torah without the oral Torah, and you can't even understand the oral Torah without the traditional commentary. Case in point, you might think that we are advocating for asceticism here. I mean, this is kind of disturbing. It says, this is the way of Torah, eat bread and salt and sleep on the floor. Is this what Jews believe in? I mean, there are some monks who believe in living in a monastery and only eating, drinking water, bread and water and salt and not talking. Jews traditionally haven't lived like this. Even the greatest rabbis tend to be normal people, right, who live a more normal life, and we don't take a vow of poverty. So that's why Rashi, Rashi became the most prominent of all Jewish commentaries, partly because he's so pithy and so short. He adds one crucial word to interpret this entire Mishnah. Afilu, even if you have to live this way. It's not ideal for a Jew to live this way, but there have always been poor people and poor Jews. And even if you find yourself in this situation, the way of Torah is you should still strive and study and learn, even though your life is difficult, and then you will find meaning in that. Such an important qualification. So Jews do actually believe in living well. We don't believe in gluttony. You always have to find a middle path. But the Talmud elsewhere says that Hillel was incredibly poor, and he still managed to study Torah, and it gives examples of different people throughout history who obligate anyone in any situation to excel in Torah. So it says the example of Hillel obligates all poor people, because if you say you're too poor to study Torah, well, Hillel came from Babylon to the land of Israel. He was so poor that he couldn't pay the admission price for a certain Torah lecture for these great rabbis, Shmayan of Talyon, and it was snowing, and they found him on the roof of this small building trying to listen in, and he was covered in snow, and that's the sacrifice he made to study Torah. And they said, all right, come down from the roof, you poor guy. If we had known, can't afford it, we'd let you in. And then the Talmud also says Rabbi Judah the prince, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, who was the leader of the Jewish people, the president, and was very wealthy, he obligates wealthy people to study Torah. Because if you're too wealthy, you could say, I have too many distractions and too many responsibilities. No, Rabbi Judah the prince was very wealthy and managed to study Torah. So it gives examples throughout history. If you think you're too X to accomplish Y, well, here's someone else throughout history who was in situation X and accomplished that. So, right, a lot of beautiful examples from the Torah and from the oral tradition that the Talmud ends up giving. Rabbi Gamliel, who was another one of the Nasiim, the Talmud sings his praises and says that he was able to have any fruit from around the world on his table all year round, even when it wasn't in season, because he'd get it imported from exotic locations. And that was considered a sign of great richness. Right now we can get any fruit any time of the year in any supermarket, so we're all rich in that sense. But finally, just another thing from the Talmud that shows we do actually believe in living a life of comfort. There's a difference between gluttony and comfort, but if you're able to, we don't believe in the vow of poverty, is that the Kohen Gadol, who is the high priest of the Jewish people, The Talmud actually interprets from the word that from the fact that he's referred to as gadol, he's referred to as great, that he should also be given a very high salary. It's kind of funny. If he's the Kohen Gadol, the great priest, that implies he has to be taken care of and compensated very well also. So these are just all proofs that as Jews we don't believe in asceticism, I guess, except for maybe a few, unusual pious people throughout history. That's why Rashi's comment here is very important. But the Mishnah is trying to give uplift and inspiration to people who do find themselves in this difficult situation, as people did, of course, throughout history and still do. So there's a sad stereotype, of course, that Jews are well-to-do. But where I used to live in New York, I think something like 40% of Jews are struggling financially, some very high number, and a lot of Russian Jews and Hasidic ultra-Orthodox who have large families, and so we really should break that stereotype of Jews all being rich, which is certainly not true. Okay, so then it goes on to say, and if you do so, happy shall you be, and it shall be well with you. So that's from Psalms. You'll be happy in this world, and you'll get a good share in the world to come, meaning this life will be made more meaningful also. And finally, it says, do not seek greatness for yourself, and do not covet honor. But then it's giving a sort of qualification. Once you do become great in Torah, if you're poor, you might be tempted to then seek renown and greatness, but don't be tempted to run after honor. Let your practice exceed your learning. This is also very Jewish. We learn in order to practice, to put it into practice, not just to sit and debate all day. Do not yearn for the table of kings, for your table is greater than their table, and your crown is greater than their crown, and your employer is trustworthy to pay you the reward of your labor. Of course, that's referring to God. And we have a crown that is even greater than kings. Okay. So just some closing words of inspiration for those who study Torah and for those who might be in a state of privation. Okay. So we can say the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim shochein b'meromim hamatzei menucha nechon al kanfei hashechina b'malos kedoshim v'tahorim kizor harakia Masirim es nishmat Chaya Adol Bas Yitzchak v'es kol ha'askaros shel halayla shelchu li'olamam ba'avor shemispalim bat haskaras nishmasam b'gan eden tehei menuchasam l'chein bal harachmim yasdireim b'seiser kenafav li'olamim v'yitzror b'tzorach haim es nishmasam Adonai unachlasam yanuchu b'shalom mishkavasam v'nomar Amen. And in English, O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the wings of the divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine like the glow of the firmament, for the souls of Chaya Adel Bas Yitzchak, Adeline Helsfig, and Castle Agron, Janeth Davidson, Alec Mendelson, Ruth Richmond, Rosalie Rosenblum, and Sarah Turkin, in whose memory we study and pray. May their resting place be in the Garden of Eden, therefore may the Master of Mercy shelter them in the shelter of his wings for eternity. May he bind their soul in the bond of life. Hashem is their heritage, may they rest in peace, and let us say Amen.